Okay, we're in the book of Judges, and the book of Judges is chronologically after all the other books that we've read so far. They come at one after another, everything from Garden of Eden to them ending up in Egypt, to them coming out of Egypt, led by Moses, to Moses dying and taken over by Joshua, leading them into the promised land, where now Joshua died at the last chapter of the book of Joshua, and now it starts with, we're in the book of Judges. So the book of Judges starts right after Joshua died, and for the next 330 years of them living under judges. So judges are like, we have president, there's kings, and judges kind of serve similar functions as a civil position. And this is around 1100 BC, so all chronologically, coming up towards the year of zero, which is Christ's birth. And there were 12 judges during this time. And I'm not going to go into all the individual stories because, again, this whole study is about an overview of the Bible and of the different books. But there is a continuous cycle. I don't know if it's exactly 12 times the same cycle, but pretty much. And what it is that the people keep falling away from God or walking away from God. And then God removes the blessings, and they end up with consequences, captivity by other nations, bondage, and then there's discipline and suffering and sorrow and humility, and then finally they repent, and God, as He always promises, then has compassion on them, and He raises a new judge to deliver them and restore them. But as soon as that's done, they fall away again. They start marrying people from other cultures and religions, and they worship false gods, and again they end up with negative consequences. And again, to me, the Old Testament, is about showing us history, and like they say, history repeat itself. So, what are we doing today? As a nation, are we falling away from God and suffering the consequences? And if we were to turn our ways back to God, that He would maybe raise a deliverer or of some political form, or just have mercy on us as a country. And there are Bible verses from the previous books and from the books to come that support this, because God never changes. One, He obviously gave us the ultimate deliverer of Jesus in the New Testament. But also we read before that everybody did what seemed right in their own eyes, and that's what they keep doing in this book. And then there's another famous verse. I don't know if I can quote it right now, but it's in a book to come, I think, about that. But if the people repent and turn from their ways, I forget how it goes, but there certainly God is always the same, and He has the same promises. So again, that you can kind of think of it as the 3 Ds. Disobedience leads to discipline, and then when they repent, it leads to deliverance. So disobedience, discipline, deliverance. And some of the judges you might have heard of, that one was a female, Deborah. And the most famous one in Judges chapter 16. And it's a neat little story. It's kind of funny in many ways. It's funny because it talks about men and women, how men are weak for women. And sorry, my hair is just terrible. And then also it's kind of like a love story, and then they're trying. So it's about Samson and Delilah, if you've heard about that. Judges chapter 16. He was the strongest person ever lived. He was a Nazarite, which was a particular type of upbringing, that you would never cut your hair, and you had certain strengths, and you couldn't touch certain things. But he ended up being the strongest person in the Bible. He never cut his hair, but his weakness would have been if he did cut his hair, he would lose all his strength. So they're sending Delilah because he likes her. And so they send her to him to try to find out what his weakness is, what it is that makes him so unbelievably strong. And eventually she is able to get him to admit that it's his hair. So they cut his hair and he loses all his strength, and they keep him captive. And then for some reason they're bringing him up to the temple, to their temple, the Philistines. There's like 3,000 Philistines in this big temple, and they put him between two pillars. So if you ever seen, like, it might have seen a statue of this really strong man holding himself kind of with the arms between the two pillars. And but what he did was he said, I'm gonna, God, give me the strength, and I'm gonna let myself die, because this would kill himself to do this. But he pushed those pillars, I guess, so the whole temple fell and killed all the people in it. So that's a famous story in there. But the main lesson again is just the cycles, falling away from God, and what that leads to always leads to negative. And then suffering, sorrow, and humility. But then if we repent, God will have compassion. And in the book of Judges, he raises deliverers and restores us to him, which is the nature of God.